Happy Mother's Day if you are celebrating. And I didn't give much of a warning about today's training, and I apologize for that. This is a tangible training. And so what that means is that this is about like actionable steps that you can take in 3D in your human. This isn't really about the energetics or a self-belief or a self-esteem point of view. This is all about like, what do you actually have to do to get the job done? So we're alternating every other week between the intangible and the tangible. Purpose being, when you work with energy, you're going to get results twice as fast with half the effort. So today we are talking about the efforting that you're going to do in your human experience to lose 5 pounds, but not just lose 5 pounds, actually keep it off. So how you're going to do this, we're focusing on just 2 habits because, to be quite honest with you, these are the only 2 habits that you really need to lose the 5 pounds. And they are hydration and eating high energy, high fullness foods. So what do I mean by that? The high energy, high fullness foods, we're going to start there first. And the high energy, high fullness foods are foods that are going to give you a whole bunch of nutrients. They have a lot of fiber in them and they have a lot of water. So what happens is you get to fill your stomach with a whole lot of volume and you get a ton of nutrients. So I want you to think of high fullness food, high energy, high fullness foods as like the holy grail of your health and your hotness. Hey, Mapaya, transformation. And so I have a list of high energy, high fullness foods, and they are melon, citrus, berries, peaches, cucumber, green leafy vegetables, squash, celery, tomato, bell peppers, and really all peppers, cauliflower, onion, and mushroom. And so all of these foods, like our food is the original medicine. We got medicine when, I'm going to say the petroleum tycoon, the Rockefellers, decided to create petroleum-based medicine and actually influenced members of the U.S. Congress to call all holistic doctors quack medicine. But our medicine started as being food, and then the medicine pharmaceutical things became abstracts of food. Food is our very first medicine. So when you're eating those high energy, high fullness foods, you're actually giving yourself so much more nutrients that's going to help you stay healthy for longer and more vibrant. Now, when we're dieting, we're on a calorie restriction, right? We're eating less calories than our body actually is required to sustain itself. So say you are needing 2,000 calories to sustain your body with all of the activities that you're doing, with your size, with your height, with your weight, with what you need is as you. Say that there is a 2,000 calorie that you need just to operate. Like you need at least like a quarter of a gallon of gas to go in your car for it to drive. Like there's a bare minimum that we need just to make the body move and stay exactly the same. So if we are this person, right, at this height and this size, and it requires 2,000 calories to sustain itself, but maybe we don't quite like the body composition. We feel like there's 5 pounds of fat that we would really love to remove from our body because maybe we want to have our joints feel a little bit better. We want to feel better in our clothes, like around the waistband. Maybe we don't want our thighs to rub together as much and give us blisters. Maybe we just want to be able to see a little bit more muscle, and we want to see more of a muscular athletic body versus a softer, rounder body, whatever the reason is, right? So we take that calorie amount to say, well, at this 5 pounds extra of fat, this is how much it's going to take to sustain it. So if I remove a little bit of calories, then my fat storage is going to be the fuel for this vehicle, for this body. So then our body starts to burn the fat, so that because it's a less efficient machine, it's not getting as many calories in through the mouth. So it has to take calories from the body. That's the basic logistics of why we go into a calorie deficit, so that we can lose fat. So if we're on a calorie deficit, if that means that we're taking in less energy than our body requires to sustain itself, we might get hungry, right? Especially if we're eating high energy, meaning they have a whole lot of calories, but they're a low fullness food. They're dense. So some dense things are going to be more of like a potato, or believe it or not, a carrot, which kind of you want volume. You want volume. The crunch is you're gonna get a good crunch from the carrot. But if you're looking at a carrot versus celery, you're gonna want something, or cucumber, you're gonna want something that's a little bit more watery, and it's gonna take up more space. But don't freak out about the carrots, okay? So if we're eating foods that we're used to eating, say that we go to like a pastry shop, that's a high energy, right? There's lots of calories in it. There's lard in it. There's fat, there's sugar. It tastes so good, but it doesn't take up a lot of space in your body. And it kind of just like absorbs into your body really quickly, because it's kind of easy to digest in a certain way. It doesn't have a lot of fiber to take up space and actually cause your system to kind of nosh on it to then move it out of your system. So if we choose to say, I want to be in a calorie deficit so that I could burn off this extra weight, it will actually be better for me psychologically and within the hunger cues of having a full stomach or an empty stomach if I lean towards these foods that are high fullness. So when we have these high fullness foods, we're naturally going to go into a calorie deficit, because they're taking up so much space in our actual stomach organ. So we're using food kind of as a medicinal purpose to get to the outcome of our health or our aesthetic transformation. So when we're focusing on these high energy, high fullness foods, we're going to feel better because we have more nutrients. Our digestive system is going to operate better because we have a lot of water and a lot of fiber to kind of clean it out and wash out our insides. And then we're having food that's taking up so much space, so that while you might have like a decrease in energy, like as if like what a coffee would give to you, like that kind of energy, like you're going to feel a little bit more tired sometimes when your body is transitioning to burning fat for fuel instead of burning instant sustenance that's coming in through your food. That kind of energy lull, you're going to have a better time managing it, because you're not going to have to deal with actual hunger cues from having an empty stomach. So that way it's a little bit easier when you're in that transitionary stage of having less food in, so that the body can use the food that's stored on your body as the energy, because that is kind of like, I think of it as like an engine. There is, or like a fan. Okay. So if there's a fan blowing and you see the propellers of the fan going round and round and round, and you turn the fan off, it's going to take a little bit of time for that fan to slow down, right? And then if you put the fan on a reverse current because you're circulating the energy, say, instead of having the fan in front of the window with the fan blowing air in, you turn the power off. It takes a while for that propeller to stop spinning. Then you reverse the propeller to then suck energy out of the house, or air out of the house, to take it outside, right? Like if you're trying to clean the inside air out the window. There's a lull time where that fan has to slow down to then rev up to go the other way. So it's the same thing for our body. There's kind of a lull time. And so in that lull time of our energy decreasing because we're not taking as much in, it's easier to have a full stomach as our body ramps up in the other direction, pulling fuel from our fat, stored energy, to then burn and operate our body so that we can function. Mapaya says, I do feel I get hungry way faster when eating these high water foods. Oh, you get hungrier faster when you eat high water foods? Are you still eating like enough nutrients? Like, are you just eating, Are you eating protein with these meals? Maybe that's the missing link, because we want to have like a balanced meal. And that sounds really scary, especially when we see stuff about carbohydrates and how they make us bloat, or we should stay away from them because of insulin. Well, if you're not insulin resistant, meaning if you're not having an issue processing sugar, you're still going to want to eat carbs. And carbs they attract 3 molecules of water for every molecule of the carbohydrate. So that's why we get an aesthetic transformation really fast when we cut out the carbs, because our body just releases water. Now, when we're eating these high energy, high fullness foods that do have a lot of water and do have a lot of fiber, we're going to be eating a greater volume of them than, say, we would the pastry, right? Like you can eat half of a pastry and you're going to be hitting a whole lot of calories. But if you eat half a plate of zucchini, you will be hungrier later, probably, if you're just eating the zucchini, because it is primarily water. But the fullness going on, you're not going to eat as many calories because the vegetable is taking up so much space. But we want to still have a protein and a fat with it. So if we're eating an animal protein, that's going to have naturally some fat into it, most likely, unless you're eating a really lean chicken or a really lean cut of beef, or you're eating a lean fish, we're going to have enough fat coming in from our animal product. If not, you can always cook it in a little bit of butter or a little bit of olive oil. And we want to make sure that we're having that protein, fat, and carb with a meal, because what that's doing is giving your body everything it needs in that moment to have a steady blood sugar. And the steady blood sugar is really the thing that's going to help us sustain the low calorie deficit as our body is pulling resources from the fat. So Mapaya says, today I ate sweet potato, chicken, and bell pepper, but if I leave the sweet potato and more vegetable, I get hungry fast again. If I leave the sweet potato and more vegetable, I get hungry faster again. Well, balance it out. Definitely balance it out, so that complex carb is going to be a slow digesting carb, so that you will be fuller longer, but the volume is going to take up more space in that meal sitting. So maybe, Mapaya, you're going to have a more satisfying meal volume-wise in the moment. And if you make sure that you still include some of the complex carbohydrate, you're going to stay fuller longer. And Mapaya, you've been doing really well in your calorie deficit. This also is kind of like the context of, if we are eating, if we're going to Starbucks and we're having a pastry every day, if we're having foods that are really easily accessible, that have a long shelf life, that we can buy in the grocery store on the inside, not the perimeter of the aisles, if that's our primary lifestyle, switching to these foods is going to really help us. Because if we just want the 5 pounds to lose, and our lifestyle has been more like snacking on dense things, like snacking on nuts, even though nuts are really healthy, if that's always your snack, you're eating a whole lot of calories in such a tiny portion. And so you're not actually being able to work with the hunger cues, because you have this huge load of calorie, but not a huge sensation of fullness in your body. So if our lifestyle is having a lot of foods like that, doing these practices of switching to these foods is going to be so much easier. And we do want to make sure that we're having the protein. We do want to make sure we're having enough fat, so that we are able to have a steady blood sugar to where we're not starving all the time. The other thing that we're going to want to do is make sure that we are hydrated. Because if you aim to drink 2 liters of water, or at least half a gallon of water, you're going to crowd out some of the stuff that you might be drinking that might be dehydrating you, or have a ton of calories in it that you're not paying attention to. So I order from Starbucks, and on the Starbucks app, you can see how you can change your drinks so that they don't have as much calories in them. So I'll change it to like not have whole milk, or I'll say just want a splash of milk, or change from a sugar syrup, even though it only has 5 grams of carbs in it, to a sugar-free syrup. Like there's things that we're drinking that are either have secret calories in them that we're not paying attention to, that just add on to our frame, add energy that we don't need to our system. And then there's drinks that are dehydrating us. So if we make this goal that we're going to drink at least 2 liters of water or half a gallon of water a day, we're not going to have so much room to drink these other things, because drinking is a commitment. So if you're prioritizing the water hydration, there's probably not going to be a lot more for you to drink otherwise. And I know this from experience. Like I have a gallon water jug, and if I don't fill it, I have a really hard time hitting my water. So I have my water jug, and then I have like a pretty big cup. I don't like too close to the camera. I have a really big cup that's stainless steel that has a straw. And I make sure that I just keep filling that cup up all day long. And that way I know I'm going to get my water in. But what I've observed about myself is that if I'm feeling a little bit more low energy, or I'm feeling like I want to have coffee, if I order a coffee and I don't have my gallon water jug, I don't get my water in. I just keep reaching for drinking the coffee. And the problem with this is that it's going to dehydrate you. And when we're dehydrated because of too much caffeine, we might misinterpret a thirst cue as a hunger cue, and then we start eating. And when we're prioritizing the water over caffeine drinks, or over drinks that have a bunch of calories in it that don't really add a lot of fullness to us, then, wait, I just got lost for a second. I'm sorry. When we focus on the water, it crowds out those other drinks. So then it makes it easier for us to make these habit changes, because there's like literally like no time or no space to have these other things. So coming back to the high fullness foods, melon and like cottage cheese and some almonds, or having melon and a few almonds and a protein drink. That's going to be a really great snack, and that's going to help keep you full for a long time. Citrus is, especially if you're having a grapefruit, is a natural diuretic. And so if you have citrus, if you have grapefruit, one of my favorite meals used to be like 3 to 4 ounces of salmon, grapefruit, and almonds. That was so satisfying to me. That might sound a little crazy, but then you know what I did on top of that is I cut the grapefruit beforehand, and I threw the almonds in the grapefruit container, and the acid from the citrus kind of made the almonds expand. I had raw almonds, and they had like a bigger bite to them, and the crunch was so satisfying. The water content from the grapefruit was really satisfying, and then the protein had fat in it. So that was one of my favorite meals back in the day. Now, your berries, you're going to be able to eat so many berries. One of my favorite snacks is yogurt mixed with protein powder in it and a whole bunch of berries. It is so filling and so much fun to eat. It tastes so good. Now, if you had, a salad of cucumber, green leafies, celery, tomato, bell, hello, like that is a huge salad. If you ate a big salad, if you focused on having a big ass salad every single day with a good portion of protein on it, maybe even chicken breast, maybe even 2 eggs, that's going to fill you up so much. Your squash, like I love squash. I rely on squash. I'm having zucchini. I'm having delicata. I'm having honey nut squash, butternut squash, spaghetti squash, not so often, but these other squashes, like I roast them and I even eat the skin because the skin is kind of crunchy. It tastes really good. And when we're eating squash, again, it's a lot of fiber. It's a lot of volume. They're going to like clean you out and take up a whole lot of space. So Mapaya said, I used to have that so much, confusing the body needing water with eating food. Yeah. Yeah. Do you mean like eating water with your food, or do you mean uh eating when you really should be drinking because you're dehydrated? Yeah. Oh, yeah. So a strawberry, part of the berry you talk about. Yeah, strawberry, blackberry, blueberry, boysenberry, all of the berries. And then yeah, exactly. I was thirsty, but I ate food. Okay. And then yeah, we have a lot of squash here. I wonder if you could order squash online. I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could. Okay. So I think that's about it, what I want to say. If you look up these foods, melons, citrus, berries, peaches, cucumber, green leafies, squash, celery, tomato, bell peppers, cauliflower, onion, mushroom, if you look those up, you'll actually see the health benefits of them, even spiritual meanings of them, of like how they're going to support your metaphysical body, the body that you can't touch, you can't really feel, you can only sense. And I'm telling you, if you focus on this high energy, high volume foods, and you focus on drinking 2 liters of water / a half gallon of water each day, your body will transform. And you're not going on a diet. You're not tracking your macros. You're just bringing it back to basics where you're hydrating your body and you're crowding out our modern civilization beverages that are either dehydrating you or packing on pounds underneath your nose because they've got so many calories in them. And then you're eating foods that are from the earth, right? Like you're not eating food parts. A couple of years ago, it was like 10 years ago, I was watching a TED talk from a scientist, and she was talking about like the craze of the paleo diet fad. And she's like, okay, so the paleo diet people want you to believe that if you eat all your whole foods, no grains, no this, no that, then you're eating like a caveman. She's like, let me show you what your caveman ancestors were actually eating. And she went through all these different species of broccoli, of lettuce. And she's like, you think you're paleo, but you're actually only eating the options of vegetables that your grocery store is giving you. And that was like eye-opening. And then she went to continue and say that most of the foods that you see in a package are not an actual food. They're a food product. And she said they're a part of food. So we can have something that's, and I can't even think of like, I think they're more like meal replacement type things, or even like junk food, chips, whatever. We've been so far removed from an original source of food that a lot of things that we're eating aren't actually food. So when we focus on these high energy, high volume foods, we're giving our body a recognizable resource. Because what's going on in the earth with food and how it's produced, maybe not how it's naturally produced, how it comes from the earth, it grows through dirt, it has minerals, it picks up energy from the sun. We get to put that in our body. So we're getting elements of the earth and minerals, and we're getting energy from the sun because it's captured in the actual plant. Then we have animals who eat plants and who eat other animals, and then they have all these amino acids, and then we eat those, and we're all in it together, right? So when we're focusing on eating and drinking real stuff, then our body on a cellular level is even going to recognize more things as this body being a functioning organism versus what is this fake food that just went into my body? What is this not real thing that went into my body? What is this partial nutrient that just went into my body? So when we're focusing on this, we're going to get healthier as we get hotter, because there's kind of like no other way around it. Like that's just like the tangible outcome of focusing on hydration and focusing on high volume foods, because those high volume foods are natural foods. They don't have a bunch of fillers in them. So they're recognizable to our system as well. And to Mapaya's point about like being hungry with the high, that she does get hungrier with having these vegetables. It's like, we also want to make sure that we're eating enough protein and fat with those meals. And so I can't think of what the ratio is about right now, like what it is percentage wise, but I'm telling you, I feel so good when I have like 20 to 25 grams of protein, which is like a palm serving of protein, with about 30 to 40 grams of carbs, which is going to be a big plate of vegetables, and probably like, I'm like thinking about potatoes, like mashed potatoes. That's about like 4 little mini potatoes, or it's like a serving of cream of wheat, or it's like, it's like a cup of rice. That's going to be about 30 grams of carbs. That I feel so good with eating. And usually my animal product gives me about 5 to 7 grams of fat. On the high, it would be 7 to 10 grams of fat if I'm eating beef or bison. But that 30 grams of carbs, 20 to 25 grams of protein, 7 to 10 grams of fat. You can even get your fat from a few nuts or some nut butter on the side, or even putting some nut butter on your meat. It tastes so good. That meal keeps me so full, so full. And so, Mapaya, we could just like play around with like some of the things that you're eating to see if there's something that's going to make you feel fuller longer, with different vegetables. Like mushrooms probably will actually make you feel really good. I feel like they're kind of like dense, like especially like if you don't cook them, if you don't overcook them, like if they're just lightly cooked, they kind of feel a little thicker in your body. So that's the training that we're doing today. I wanted to pop in and share this with you for our weekly lives. And so remember that we're hitting energetically and the tangible, the physical and the non-physical. So, shiitake, yes. So focus on drinking 2 liters or a half gallon of water every day. That's going to cut out room for high calorie drinks, and it's going to cut out room for drinks that are going to dehydrate you. Focus on the high energy, high volume foods so that you can really feel like literally energized because you have so many nutrients, and you give your body even more hydration. You give your body, fiber to clean out your intestinal system, and it takes up a whole lot of space in your stomach. Bonus, eat every 2.5 to 3 hours. And that's really going to make you feel good. Make sure that you're eating some protein and fat with those high volume, high energy, high fullness foods, and just watch your body transform. It has to. It absolutely has to. Okay, everyone. So I will see you next week for another training. It will be intangible. It will be about energetic stuff. And actually, last training about the intangible was, let me see really quick, because we're doing kind of like a part 2 next week. Okay, so the intangible training that we had last week was patterns of sadness, disappointment, shame, and guilt, and how they are, so you stop binge eating. The next intangible training is going to be how those energies prevent a change. Because there is a baseline, your body's going to change. But there's also, in the paradox of being human, reasons why your body won't change. And those are energetic reasons. And so we're going to get into that later next week. But for now, I would so love you to do this, because I'm telling you, 99% of the people in here, I could like guarantee that this is going to change your body. There will be a paradox. There will be an anomaly. And if you do this for a week and there is an anomaly where your body doesn't change, you'd want to definitely tune into the intangible training that we have next week to see what missing piece on the non-physical side you can incorporate so that this will help you transform. Okay. Thank you, Mapai, for being here. You are welcome. We'll see everybody next week.